Hey, you want to do the intro? Huh? Alright. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Freak Show Racing. On this episode, we got a bunch of goodies for the interior of the car, including some gauges from GlowShift and some pretty trick floor mats from JTSpec out of Australia. Now, I'm really excited about those floor mats, but before we get into that, we're going to tackle these gauges. This car already had aftermarket gauges in it when I purchased the vehicle, and I'm not a huge fan of the install. The wiring job on them wasn't very great, and they turn on and off constantly, and I just don't trust them. So, and the stock cluster, I don't trust the stock cluster that much either, because it's got some wiring issues as well. So what we have is the tinted 7 color series from GlowShift. Now, they're relatively inexpensive. I've used these gauges before and they work. I currently have GlowShift tack in there because my stock tack doesn't work on my stock cluster. And I didn't purchase these, but I'm not sure who sent them to me, but thank you. Because I did need to do this. But anyway, we got water temp, oil pressure, and voltage. The same as what is already in there. We're just replacing it with something that I know is going to work. And I'm going to fix the issues that... If these don't work, it's my fault, not previous owner. But each one of these gauges comes with their own sub-harness. So they're really simple wiring. This wiring is really simple. It's nothing to be intimidated by. There's instructions for every gauge, which color wire goes to what. I've already removed all of those sub-harnesses, and I've built my own harness out of them, which is here. I've extended the wires. The only thing I have left to do is for the green wires, I have to add wire to it and extend it into the engine bay. And these are the signals that will run to the sensors that come with the gauges. But I haven't extended that wire yet because I don't want to make it too long. And I would like to cover them with this expandable loom that I have. Now, to install these gauges, there's a number of accessories you might need. It just depends on the car, the engine you're installing them on. Specifically for the Integra, one thing that you're going to need is your water temp sensor. Is going to need to be in line before the thermostat. So you'll need something like this. This is an adapter that goes straight in the water line from the outlet of the radiator. And your sensor will go right here. This one is already there. This car already has that. And the new sensor should plug straight into that. Also, for your oil pressure and oil temperature, you'll need a sandwich plate to go on the back of the block. You don't have to have this. There's other ways of doing it. But if you want to keep your factory sensors and run the aftermarket sensors, which is what I intend to do, you will need a sandwich plate with adapters to plug in the new sensors. This car also already has that. And the new sensors should bolt straight into it. So that shouldn't be an issue. But while I'm down there, once I'm there, I'm going to go ahead and change my oil. It's perfect time to do an oil change, so that's when I will do that. But my new sensors The new sensors that come with the new gauges should plug straight into that. And then it's just connecting a couple of wires. I want to see if you guys see this. If you're on eBay and you're looking for exhaust studs, be careful, because these were said to have been 1320 performance exhaust studs, and I think I got scammed. Pretty sure these were Chinese made. They don't seem the same quality as other 1320 products. And as you can see, I'm missing 2 nuts, and I've already replaced some with the factory bolts, because those nuts never get tight. Even at cranking down on them as hard as they can, they still loosen up and rattle off. So I do have another set coming from a different company, and they're titanium. They're supposed to be better, so we'll see. But I'm gonna remove those 2 studs while we're here, and I'm gonna put a factory stud back in. Alright, well, I got the header bolt situation taken care of for now. It just sucks though. It's like this Flat Shark header, I don't really like it a whole lot, to be honest. The gasket they sent with it is already blown out, so I need a new gasket. And you can tell it's having pretty bad exhaust leaks. So, I got it to fix exhaust leaks from a cracked stock manifold, and now I'm stuck with leaky exhaust because it doesn't really line up that well and the gasket keeps blowing out. But I also need a new cam cap. I don't know if you can see it, it's leaking a little, but we'll handle all of that in the future. But right now, let's get back to the gauges. So on this harness here that I made, I took the sub harnesses that come with these gauges. They're all the same. The wire colors will always be the same. So your green wire, it'll look like this. Like this one is the oil temp gauge. You have red, black, orange, yellow, and green. The green wire is your signal wire. It's always going to go to your sensors. Your red wire is a positive, but it's a switched positive. It means it's only on when the ignition is on. The yellow is constant positive, black is ground, and the orange runs to your headlights and dims. I don't have that plugged in. I don't care if they dim or not. I want them to stay bright the whole time. But what I need to do is I need to extend these green wires and cover them with my expandable loom, so I can pull them through the firewall and run them to the sensors. Your oil pressure gauge also has a separate harness for that sensor. All right, so you power the gauge with one harness that comes with the gauge, and then there's a separate harness that runs to the sensor that'll go to the back of your block. But what I've done with this sub harness is I took all of my positives, I took all of my red wires, ran them to one as 4. So I tied all 4 of those together, ran them to one fuse, and I took the switched positive, ran them to another fuse, tied all 4 of those together, ran them to another fuse, and my ground is here. Now all 4 of the grounds run together. They're all tied together and they run to this eyelet right here, which all ground inside of the chassis under the dash. But yeah, I'm gonna extend these green wires, and then I'll start pulling it through the firewall. And I'm also going to put some of this on the secondary harness that goes to the oil pressure sensor, get it set up, and it will run back through the firewall. But some of these sensors, like your water pressure or your water temperature and your oil temperature, their sensors also have grounds that will have to be grounded inside of the engine bay. But so your gauge is going to have a ground, which is here. Your gauges will have grounds, and some of your sensors will also have their own individual grounds. But your power wire, your signal wire will run to that. And all the instructions for how to wire them up are inside of these boxes. So all you have to do is read them. And it's fairly simple. Alright, so what I've done is I extended the green wire and I wrapped it in this sheathing, and I made a little bit of extra. I made it a little long so I'd have extra, but I made a little tag so that I'll know which wire it's for when I pull it through the firewall. That way I know which one is which. But it's pretty simple. I use some assorted sizes of heat shrink and heat shrink crimp connectors and splice the 2 wires together. Now I have to make another signal wire for the water temperature gauge, and then I can start feeding this harness into the car. But I'm gonna make that one off camera. Same process, you know, splice the 2 wires together with the connector on there, and then heat shrink it, cover it with heat shrink, and then put my expandable sheathing on. And I'm also gonna leave extra for that one too, so I'm sure that I have enough, and I'll cut the excess off whenever I get ready to make it. Because the way it's gonna work, so like this is my current water temperature sensor right here. So the way it's gonna work is there's a signal and a ground for this one as well, and it has to be spliced. They send you butt connectors to splice into that sensor that comes with your gauges. So it's, like I said, it's very simple. All you have to do is read the instructions. All right, so now I got the main part of my harness completely done. There's the sending wire, signal wire for the water temp gauge, and the signal wire for the oil temp. Those are the only 2 signal wires that I'm gonna have to make and extend. Like I said, the oil pressure gauge, it has its own harness that runs back to the gauge through the firewall. And the voltage gauge just needs power, ground, and a switched power source. And it'll draw its signal to tell you how many volts you have straight from the fuse box. So it's pretty hot out here, man. It's like, I know it's only April, but it's like 85, 86 degrees in Alabama, and I'm directly in the sun. No shade, because I can't fit the car inside the shop. I need to get that Tahoe to either run or get rid of it. And the race boat has become a storage shelf. So it needs to go to a home that'll appreciate it as well. Because now it's just kind of in my way and it never gets used anymore. But anyway, I'm gonna take a break for a minute and sit in the shade and cool off. And then I'll jump inside the car and start removing the old gauges. All right, I'm gonna switch gears a little bit because I don't have time today to finish with the wiring for the gauges. But what I have here, now this isn't how these are packaged. I mean, this is how they're packaged inside the box. But I've taken them out of the box. They're packaged really well so they don't get damaged. But these are floor mats from JTSpec out of, I think it's Perth, Australia. And they're really cool. But these are for a left-hand drive Integra. You can get them for right-hand drive Integra, 350Zs, and tons of other cars. So if you guys are interested in something cool for your interior, you should check it out. But let me get these open and I'll show you. All right, guys, I didn't film it, but I just went ahead and installed the driver's side. You see, it fits pretty well. It's a little, it can be kind of floppy, but it only has one bolt that holds it in. You undo the seat bolt right here, and then there's another hole for the factory tab that holds your factory floor mats, and then you just bolt it back in. But I think they look pretty cool. And also, when you order these, if you would like, you can get a grip pad on here, or you can get like your own custom logo laser cut into them. Which I didn't do that. I just got the plain ones. These things are not cheap. They're like, for the driver and passenger, it's like $250. So yeah, and the extra stuff adds extra costs. So these are made to order. So I probably ordered them about 3.5 weeks ago. So it took about 3.5 weeks for them to ship to Alabama from Perth, Australia. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty fast for something that comes from the other side of the country. But they're cool. I like them. It definitely adds some bling to the interior. But anyway, I'm gonna knock out the passenger side and then show you guys that one. And then I'm gonna close the car up and call it a day for today, because I just don't have time to take apart all of this and try to put it back together today. But I have another day off tomorrow, and we'll get the gauges fully installed tomorrow, because I'm also gonna have to lift up the car and get up under it when I do that install. So we'll anyway, I'm gonna get the other side done and then pack everything up, call it a day for today. All right, guys, so I removed the old gauges, and the wiring for those gauges was an absolute mess. But I got all the wires out from behind the dash. The only thing that's left are these 3 signal wires that are in the engine bay. Yeah, I don't want to talk about, bad about somebody's skill, because we all had everyone who's into this, everyone who's into cars has a learning phase, but there's a point where everybody's got a phase where they have to learn what they're doing and learn a skill set. People don't always know exactly the best way to do something, but I will say about the way that these gauges were wired up, there is much cleaner ways of doing it, instead of just having a rat's nest under there. When I took the gauge pod off, there was just, and that's been a problem since I own the car. There's wiring underneath this dash that I have no idea what it goes to, or what it's for, and it's spliced into stuff into the factory harness that I'm afraid if I start trying to take it out, then the car won't crank or something, so just have to leave it alone. But it is a mess. Hey.
Don't fix the car.
Yeah, we got to fix the car. That's my wiring guy. He's the one that said, he's telling me how to do all this stuff. So he's pretty good at it. Okay, so where we are now, I've ran my harness up in where my gauge bezel is gonna sit. Now, I had to take the cluster out. There's a big hole. There's a hole here in this area that you could use, but my harness is too big, and it was easier to take the cluster out, and there's a big hole in the back on both sides. It was a lot easier to run it through there than it was down here. So now I went ahead and plugged in the volt gauge, got it sitting where it's supposed to sit. I got the oil pressure gauge sitting here. Now I need to run the signal wire for it through the firewall. And I need to get the other signal wires for the oil temp and water temp gauges. I need to get them pulled through the firewall. And then we can tidy up back here and start plugging in our gauges and get the lower part of our harness attached, hooked up to the fuse box where we're gonna plug it in at. But I'll show you that when we get there. It's hot. It's probably about 90 degrees today, so summertime is going to kill me. But anyway, I'm gonna take a break for a minute and cool off. But this is the signal wire for the sensor that goes to the oil pressure gauge. I need to get it pulled through the firewall and then plugged into the back of the gauge before I put the gauge all the way in. This end plugs into the back of the gauge. This end plugs into the sensor. I like that it's actually got a plug on it instead of having to wire it yourself, but that's going to be very hard to get through the firewall, so it'll be a lot easier to push this side through, I think. So that's what I'm going to try to do. But I'm going to take a break first because it is very hot. Alright guys, so I got the wires routed, got the bezel back on, and the gauges installed. I haven't hooked them up yet, but it's pretty simple. So what we're gonna do now is on this harness, this one with the eyelet goes to a ground, which I have a ground source right there for my other gauge. And then this purple wire which is actually the red wire from all the gauges, is a switched 12-volt source. So it only has power when the ignition is on. This one is the yellow wire. It is constant. It has power no matter what. And we're gonna plug this, we're gonna check through the fuse box with a test light and find the perfect spot to plug these into. But I'm gonna do that, and then I'm going to test and make sure my gauges turn on before I hook the sensors up. All right, so I found my power sources down there. I have one hooked up to the power locks. That would be a constant 12-volt source. One is running to the driver's side window switch, which is a switched source. And then I grounded it right there. The same place I grounded the tachometer when I put it in. But let's see if they turn on. Yes, they turn on. Voltage gauge works. The other three are going to read very high because they're not reading anything right now. So that is correct. They're all correct. Right. Now comes the fun part. We have to jack the car up and install the sensors. First, I'm gonna tidy up these wires because they're all over my feet. But I'm gonna tidy up these wires and put them behind that interior panel. Get them out of the way. All right, guys. So this went up under the car, and I removed this sandwich plate adapter that was already on there. Now I'm going to remove both of these sensors because, well, just honestly because I have new ones, but I'm gonna put them in the same ports where they were to start with. That way this adapter will go back on with no problems. I cleaned the gasket up and cleaned the whole thing up because it was pretty grimy and dirty. But I'm gonna install those sensors and start on the wiring before I put it back up under the car because it's just easier to do with it out here, to be honest. But I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna fill the engine back up with oil. We're gonna see what we got, see if we got them to work. All right, I got both sensors installed. Now, so on these smaller ones, you put Teflon on those. The big one, it doesn't require Teflon. It comes with thread sealant already on it. But now, so my black wire on this one is just like the water temp sensor. The black wire is ground, the white wire is signal. So I need to add to my signal wire on the car so that I can attach it to this. Okay, so now reinstalled the sandwich plate and the filter. Now it's just a matter of putting oil back in the engine and plugging the wires in, and then, you know, tying them up, making sure they're not in the way of anything, and then we can fire it up and see if these gauges work. All right, guys, moment of truth. We're gonna start her up and see if the gauges work and see if we have any leaks. Well, they work. Well, the oil pressure's definitely working. Water temp, yeah, that's working. We'll let it heat up for a minute. We'll let it heat up for a minute and then check for leaks. I don't see any, so that's good. Don't see any there. We'll let it start getting some heat, and then we'll see if these gauges will start giving us a temperature reading. But I'm pretty sure they're going to. Because we got good oil pressure. Very good oil pressure. It's at 70 psi. Got to get a little bit of heat in there. Guys, it doesn't look like much, but we are reading temperature on the water and the oil. Volts are at 14, and we got about 65 psi oil pressure at idle. So I'd call this a success. Everything works. Alright, I'm gonna double check for leaks one more time, and then I'll put the car back on the ground. Put the car back on the ground and clean it up, and we'll close out this video. But so far everything looks good. I don't see any leaks. Gauges are working. Everything looks good. Alright guys, everything looks great. No leaks. Everything's working. So we're gonna go ahead and call it a day. Call this video a success, upgrade. It's much better than what was in here before. I'm pleased with it. And these are color changed, so you can set it any color you want, which I'm glad everything will match now. But peace. See you guys in the next one. Hope you liked it.